All right, welcome everyone to tonight's webinar of the Market Manager Certificate Program. I'm Amanda Shreve. I'm the Executive Director for the Michigan Farmers Market Association, and I'm going to be your webinar facilitator tonight. You've made it to the final topic-based webinar of the 2026 program. Congratulations. Tonight's topic is planning for events and entertainment. We're gonna kick it off with three speakers tonight. One kind of overview of the topic. Our second speaker is going to dive into music licensing, so a specific topic on a specific kind of entertainment that we want to make sure that you're aware of. And then because volunteers are very integral to both events and our overall market, we're also going to have a speaker on working with volunteers, some overview topic there. We are going to have plenty of time for a discussion breakout rooms because we know folks love, especially market managers, love to talk about the events at their market. And then before we log off tonight, we're also going to have some open office hours for questions and support around the presentations that you're preparing if you are in the full program. So that's kind of the lay of the land tonight. I'm going to kick us off by turning it over to Clara Millark with the Michigan Farmers Market Association to give us this overview on the topic. Clara is open to questions as she goes along, so if you have a question come up, feel free to put that in the chat box. And if there's one that she misses, we'll draw her attention to it at the end. So I will turn it over to you, Clara.
Yeah, thank you, Amanda. That was a wonderful introduction to kind of set us up for the night. So, as Amanda said, I'm going to be giving us just a brief overview of our topic tonight. And like she said, congratulations for making it to the last topic-based presentation. And so, with that, I'm going to kick us off with a couple questions to kind of get us up and going right in the beginning of the webinar, okay? Question number one. What are popular types of market events and entertainment? This can be something you've hosted before, something you've heard of, but maybe never tried, anything of the sort. The picture kind of gives one away, gives a little hint if you're stuck. But feel free to shout those out or drop those in the chat. What are some popular types of events and entertainment? Musicians, kids' day, live music, cooking demos, kids' activities. Great answers. Awesome. Health screenings, yoga. Okay, I've never been to a yoga at the farmers market, but I have heard it is so popular. So if you have, drop where you went in the chat because like I need to know where this is. All right, those are some great answers. So with that, I'm going to pop over to the next slide. Yeah, you guys nailed it. So there are many types of events and entertainment at the market. Music and dance, that was one we heard. Cooking demos, children's activities, that's something that's super, super popular. Fitness programming, Amanda dropped health screenings. And then this last one here, raffles and contests. We're going to swing back to that at the very end, but that's an important one because that one has a little bit of special licensing and things like that that go with it. All right. Now, another question, my final question of the night. I'll let you be after this. But my second question, this one is more personal than just anyone you've seen, okay? What is your favorite event that you personally have held or attended at a farmer's market? All right. So, personal to you, held or attended at a farmer's market. Drop them in the chat, or again, feel free to just come off mute. Art shows, ooh, laughter club. Okay. Trey, you don't have to come off mute if you don't want to, but can I probe a little bit more about the Laughter Club? Like, what was this like? Okay, I think I need to know a little bit more. This sounds
Yeah,
super
so
interesting.
it's not really too complicated. We have a club here in Bay City, and it is literally a laughter club. It's a lot of breath work and like diaphragm work, and it became very addictive throughout the market. So we had an instructor that went with about 15 attendees, and we ended up having, vendors at the market, participants, volunteers, all kind of tap in for the class. It was about 45 minutes or so, about 30 minutes was them actually laughing, but it added a lot of positive culture to our market. It was, free, accessible, and easy, and the instructor was fantastic.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. And I appreciate you being willing to come off mute and share for me because I was very curious about that. All right, those were some great answers and sound like very memorable and fun events that were held at the market. So here's a little bit of a breakdown of some programming frequency that we've seen in Michigan. So it's pretty common for music and dance performances to be held at markets. And we see a lot of people doing weekly programming for that. You'll see a little bit more of a breakdown. Children's activities, also super common. Some activities are more held monthly than they are, weekly. Cooking demos, that's something that you might be holding more weekly or monthly or periodically. It might be harder to get, chefs in there every week, that kind of thing. Whereas, there might be an abundance of musicians in your area willing to come in every week, that kind of thing. So how do events and entertainment enhance this market atmosphere? Trey mentioned that when the Laughter Club came out to the market, it created a very positive culture at the market. And that's exactly what having these events, having entertainment at a market does. So it builds a sense of community. It's really engaging for shoppers, especially we mentioned time and time again, those children's activities. Parents love to come to the market, but it might not always be the most accessible if you have little ones who are super, super busy. So if there's a spot where, kids can be playing, doing their activity while parents are shopping, it's a great way to engage shoppers and get people to spend a little bit more time at the market, maybe even visit more frequently than they would. And like we've mentioned, this creates memorable experiences. So rather than, rushing in quick to grab, like you're at the grocery store to grab your stuff, this makes you spend a little bit more time, creates more memorable experiences, and really helps establish that market identity. So you can really use the types of events, the types of entertainment you're featuring at your market to help establish who you are as a market, the kind of identity you want to put into your community. Do you want to be a space for art, for music, for dance, for people to come and be creative? Do you want this to be a very family-friendly space for people to come with their children as a family event? That kind of thing. And then we just wanted to go over a little bit of some public health best practices. So public health concerns can always impact how you host events. And that was really brought to light with the pandemic a couple of years ago. So some best practices we've found is provide hand washing and sanitizing stations. Be mindful of food safety protocols, especially when doing any sort of food safety demo. If you're having chefs out, things like that, be very mindful of food safety protocols, offering samples, that kind of things. And then for those that are customers that are cautious, if you can, find alternate ways for them to participate. That way they can still be a part of that experience, even if they do have some concerns about public health. And then develop a plan for hosting events all season. So we showed that graphic where, people are having sometimes musicians out weekly, but that doesn't come without lots of planning in advance. So there's all these types of guests. You could have artists, chefs, you could have different organizations. If you have sponsors, have them come out, highlight, things they've done. But an important way, a best practice that a lot of market managers have found is to have a calendar. That way you can plan it out in events. You can host monthly events, cyclical events, or really celebrate seasonality, focus on the holidays, things like that. And then when you have things planned out in advance, you're able to then go post on social media and build up excitement for those events rather than things just being a little bit more spur of the moment. So a calendar can really help save your sanity and also help advertise things around those event times. And while you're developing a calendar, it's important that you develop criteria for how you're going to choose these guests. It's the idea of being able to accept anybody who applies, awesome, but sometimes it doesn't always work out that way. You need to have a little bit in place just to make sure you don't run into any issues. So promotion, the people that come and perform at your market, if somebody's going to come play, sing some songs and play their guitar, they should be promoting their market as well. It shouldn't just be a one-sided where the market is doing all the promotion. There should be a little bit of back and forth where the market is getting something out of it too, a mutual relationship. So these guests should be promoting their event as well to help get the word out and also to help increase market attendance and spread the word to new people who might not be going to your market all the time already. And then another thing to consider when you're developing an application or criteria for having these guests out is engagement. These guests should have active, engaging displays to create a really positive experience for market shoppers. So that is something to take into consideration when deciding who to actually have out at your market. What is going to make the best experience for both you, the performer, and your customers at the market. Sorry, we're using guests in this sense to refer to your performers, artists, things like that, not guests as your market goers. And then an important thing is maintaining guest relationships. Again, guest in this sense being your performers, chefs, those coming out to do demonstrations at your market. So some best practices we found: have a spreadsheet with contact information and dates to track communication. Save templates for recruitment, rejection, and thank you emails. That way, when something pops up, you don't have to spend the time developing something new. You can just go to that template you have and send something out. And you'll notice in here, we say templates for recruitment, thank you, but also for rejection. You might not think of it automatically, but having a template to nicely say, hey, we appreciate you applying, but we just don't think you're the best fit. Having something like that so you don't have to sit down and spend that time on it, especially if you're in the midst of a market season, is really, really valuable. And then be sure to note guests or performers you don't want to invite back for a particular reason. It is unfortunate when that happens, but it is the truth that sometimes we have to have those people that we just make a note of, hey, they weren't a good fit. Let's not invite them back again. So it's important to make sure you have that written down somewhere so that if there's turnover with a market manager, anything like that, somebody doesn't come in and say, oh, I think this person would be a great fit, not knowing the prior history of the market. And then consider money. You can seek external funding to pay these performers and fund other programming, and make sure to develop relationships with your funders. Have a plan to publicly thank them at the event. They are helping make this possible. So make sure to mention that it wouldn't be possible without them, kind of thing. All right. I know I mentioned that we would come back to raffles a little bit later. So we are at that point in the programming. We're going to talk a little bit about raffles because they are quite specific in how you can put on a raffle. Okay. So what is a raffle defined as under Michigan law? There are some main points that differentiate a raffle from other things. A raffle is a game of chance. Raffle tickets are sold. A winner is determined by randomly drawing a ticket stub, and a prize is rewarded. So the most important parts to remember with a raffle is it's where raffle tickets are sold, there's a randomly drawn prize. And so most of these drawings require a license. Examples of these would be a raffle, 50-50 drawing for a door prize, any of those things. When do I need a raffle license? If your organization is qualified by the Charitable Gaming Division, and one, the raffle will be held at a single location where the primary purpose is not the raffle. For example, a farmer's market where you were also going to hold like a 50-50, that kind of thing. Two, all tickets will be sold and distributed only at the event. If you have any pre-sales, you have to get a license for that. And then the total prize value cannot exceed more than $100. If your prize value is going to exceed that much, you need a license. So there are very, very specific criteria for times when you don't need a license. So be sure that you are double, triple checking, because honestly, there are more times that you do need a license than you don't. So again, held at one location, the primary purpose not being a raffle, all tickets sold on site, not ahead of time, and then a prize that exceeds no more than $100. If your raffle does not meet any of those criteria, or even if one criteria does not match, you need to apply for and purchase a raffle license. So how do you do that? What's the process of that? Look out for the criteria for qualifying. These organizations can be found on michigan.gov. Then make sure you're applying for these. So they will ask you for some qualifying documents along with an application and a license fee. Most of the time it is $15 to $50 per drawing date, depending on the size of the raffle, but that will be outlined when you go to apply. And then the last step, when you're holding the raffle, make sure to stick to those specifications on your application. Otherwise you could get in trouble. So some final raffle details to remember. When you're preparing to submit your application, some qualifying documents may be these: your bylaws, your articles of incorporation, tax exemption letter, maybe an expense statement. During the actual application process, this is what you need to do. Submit an application 4 weeks in advance, identify a principal officer and a chairperson for the raffle, specify raffle and ticket type, and then establish an accountability process. There are also some things to remember when holding your raffle, those being to track ticket sales and numbering, and to be consistent with the process specified on your application. So a lot of what this goes back to is just being consistent with flying, giving them the specifics of your event, and then sticking to that throughout the application and actual process of delivering these events, these raffles. All right, that brings me to the end of my spiel, giving us a little bit of an overview and diving a little bit more deeply into raffles. So with that, does anybody have any questions?
Great job, Clara. No questions came in the chat, but we really appreciate the overview, and hopefully you got people thinking and the juice is flowing, and we can jump into our next topic. So feel free to stick around for a few minutes at least and see if there's any questions that pop up. All right,
Absolutely. I will stop sharing. Thank you so much.
great. We are going to turn it over to Isabella Garcia. Isabella is also a student employee with the Michigan Farmers Market Association. And as you saw in Clara's presentation, the data from our census in 2019 and 2020 shows that music is by far the most popular type of event or entertainment at farmers markets. And so we definitely want to make sure that you have some basic knowledge around music licensing at farmers markets. So we're going to turn it over to Isabella for an overview on this topic. And Isabella is also open to questions as she goes along. So if something comes up, please put it in the chat, and we'll get started with this presentation. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Amanda, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for being with us. As she said, my name is Isabella Garcia. I am one of the student assistants with the Michigan Farmers Market Association, and I'll be giving you guys a brief overview of the music listening at the farmers markets. And just to begin, I am by no means a lawyer, so I am not allowed to give any legal advice whatsoever. This presentation is really just here for educational purposes only. And yeah, I just want to basically get that disclosure over with. Okay. Now to get started, as for our background, the Fairness in Music Listening Act of 1998 further governs where and when copyrighted music can be performed. Generally, public performances are broadly interrupted under the law and are defined as performing in a place open to the public or at any place where a substantial number of persons outside of or a normal circle of family and its social acquaintances is gathered. And according to the U.S. copyright law, any music played outside of one's circle of friends and family is what's considered public performance and requires a person to have that copyright or requires permission from the copyright owners. This includes playing a CD you purchased or song streaming through a speaker from your phone. So anything like that is where you're going to need that licensing at. So who regulates music listening? There are three performing rights organizations. We have ASCAP, or ASCAP is what I think it is, ASCAP, BMI, and then SESAC. Each PRO oversees their own catalogs and uses the court system to enforce copyright infringements. Rates vary by PRO, and purchasing a license only grants access to that specific PRO's library. So you want to be sure that you know which PRO you're under. Together, these organizations cover roughly 98% of copyrighted music. So why does this matter? The three PROs are cracking down on farmers markets across the nation, hence the reason why we have this presentation. It's really important for you all to be educated on the importance of having that licensing at the farmers market. And we just basically gathered I gathered a quick little quote from the Farmers Market Coalition Executive Director, Stacy Miller, back in 2012. She said, last fall, we started hearing from our members about organizations like ASCAP applying pressure to some farmers markets to pay licensing fees for the playing of music on site, regardless of it being an unpaid service to the community. So this is so you may be wondering like when don't you need to have a music licensing? Because we don't want this to sound too scary. So when you don't need it is if the music was published before the year of 1922. So songs published before that 1922 year are considered public domain and they don't have that C copyright symbol. Um, but if the music is played in a classroom during tutoring or government officials by nonprofit veterans organizations or at annual art, agricultural or horticultural fairs or exhibitions, you don't need that licensing. If you are playing an AM or FM broadcasted radio station licensed by the Federal Communication Commission, or also known as FCC, all of those are legally operated AM or FM radio stations and are licensed by the FCC, so you don't have to worry about that. And then if the artist is performing all original work and it's an in-person concert, there's no licensing that's needed. And then we'll get into some frequently asked questions. So the first one is, can my market play music over a speak or can my market play music over a speaker? Any music played for the public to listen to should be licensed properly. If others perform in my market, can the market operators be held liable for copyright infringements? Technically, yes. It's up to the responsibility of the business or the venue to obtain that licensing. And then how much does a PRO license cost? Typically it depends upon the seating capacity, but it can range from $50 to $500. And then do you need a license if you have a paid subscription for Pandora or Sirius XM? Internet radio is not required to be licensed by the FCC. So paid internet radio subscriptions like those two, targeted towards businesses like Pandora, like those two, may be viable alternatives if they cover the licensing costs for you. It's just really important that you check with your provider about music licensing rights before you subscribe and get into it and realize that like, oh, it's not considered. And then this is just a snapshot of a potential fine, like how much a fine could be. It can range from 750 to $150,000. Um, God forbid that happens. You get like that you get, fined. So hence the reason why we're having this presentation. And then as far as next steps, as MIFMA members, markets are eligible for FMC membership. FMC stands for Farmers Market Coalition. You guys are considered or eligible for that membership. And if you do receive a bill, God forbid you do, but if you do receive a bill, the FMC recommends the following language. You can start by saying, I am a member of the National Market Coalition and understand they are working with an attorney to develop a new form permit for farmers markets. Please contact the FMC for further information. And then for live performances, the FMC recommends the following language in a signed agreement with the performers. I am aware of U.S. copyright law and fully respect its authority with regard to the playing of live music. I hereby certify that any music played at your farmer's market is of my own authorship or in the public domain. And then if your market is run by your city, check to see if your city has licensing for PROs already. They probably do, but it's just important that get in there and check it yourself, and ensure that your market is covered by a license because you could be covered. And then this is just another snapshot of what my presentation was on. And that was the end of my presentation, and I'll open the floor up for questions.
Sabella, there's two questions in the chat. One that what you already answered. Great job. And then Barb asks, and feel free to say you don't know the answer. What about broadcasting a college football game?
A college football game, I I don't know the answer, but if I could guess, I would say you would need licensing, since that is not covered by or is not considered like what constitutes as like what can be played according to the FCC. But I can definitely check and get back with you. Unless Amanda, you have the answer to that one.
Yeah, before most broadcasts, it will say that, this broadcast is copyrighted. It's not for distribution by anyone other than the broadcasting company. So in most instances, no. You would not be just free to broadcast that in a public setting. That would also require licensing. So it seems counterintuitive because we walk around all day hearing things, but it's actually um, leaves your market open to potential litigation um, when you don't know what the rules are and think that something should be allowed and in fact is not. Trey asks, does this also apply to this might be an act this might be my showing my age, maybe digital music where they use I don't oh DJ'd. Oh, sorry, I read that totally wrong. Does this apply to DJ'd music where they use original songs to blend and create new music?
I think so long as it's the DJ's original work, um, I mean, I think I need like a little bit more clarification. So long as it's like their own work, like it's not like they're taking a song and then just like like smacking another song onto it and it's like a new song, that's still copyright. But if it's something like they're adding new instruments or something into the song and it's making it their own and it's new, I mean, I believe that's yeah. I mean, Amanda, if
Yeah.
you could like, I'm like,
No,
I don't know.
I think you're on the right track, Isabella. I think it's a dangerous, slippery slope. If the DJ is sampling or using any bits and pieces of songs that are licensed,
Mhm.
even if they're mushing them or putting them together to create something slightly different, they're still sampling or still playing a portion of a song that is copyrighted. So I think that's a dangerous slope. Um, Clara,
I know what it's like on the art side and the imagery side. So if you know, utilize a piece of work, but you're creating a new material, you actually have copyright for that material. But I wasn't sure about music. We have a DJ who, you know, wants to come in for the market and basically like spin music, but of course he's utilizing copyrighted sounds. So wasn't sure if that was, if we had any, you know, references on that side as to whether that applied. Because then on the imagery side, I know it would be fine, or the artist side, but I'm just not sure about music. So, okay. Yeah,
Clara has a
we'll
great
check into it.
Yeah, Clara has a great comment too in the chat that many DJs will have their own licensing that they pay for to protect their performance. So could be something to ask the DJ, do they have their own licensing or would they expect to be under the license of a facility? Um, and then there was another question too about what specifically are you asking the city? Isabella, do you want to tackle that one or going to defer?
Amanda, if you want to
Yeah.
help me take
So
that one.
if you are holding your farmer's market at a facility, on a facility or on property owned by someone else, you could have the potential to fall under their licensing if they have licensing. So if you are holding your farmer's market in a city-owned public park or in a city parking lot or on a city street, the city may have music licensing. So for example, I live in lovely Marshall, Michigan. We have speakers downtown. And especially during the holiday season, those speakers are playing holiday music all year, all the time. And so our city has a license to cover playing music downtown. And so if our farmers market was held on city property, which it's not, then they could fall potentially asked to fall under that city license. But because the farmers market in Marshall is held on the property of a church parking lot, they would need the church to have licensing because they're the property owner. So if your market's taking place on property owned by another entity, it's possible you could fall under their licensing if they have it. So the question is, if you're on city property, does the city carry music licensing with these three organizations? And if so, can you fall under their license? Mary has a question also about sampling. I remember something about sampling only allowed. Sampling can go so far. I might be confused about that comment, Mary. 15
Okay,
seconds.
so
Oh,
yeah, um, especially like I was doing different videos and whatever at one point in time in life, and sometimes there's music. And so if it's not already somehow public domain, whatever, then you can use up to 15 seconds,
gotcha.
right? And so if you're sampling and mixing and you get carried away and you go past that 15 seconds, then it potentially is a copyright infringement.
Gotcha. Okay. And then Andrew's comment later in the chat kind of corroborates that. So great. Okay. 15 seconds. That's a good time limit. Okay. Any other questions about music licensing? All right. And this is a great time. Thank you, Isabella, for the presentation. This is a great time for us to transition to our third and final speaker of the evening, Jennifer Weichel with MSU Extension. And Jennifer is going to be providing us some comments around working with volunteers. And Jennifer's preference is to hold questions till the end. So you're welcome to put them in the chat, and then as we go, and then we will address them all at the end.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm really happy to be here with all of you. I am Jennifer Weichel. I'm a certified volunteer administrator and the volunteer specialist for Michigan State University Extension. And I'm really excited to talk to you today about utilizing volunteers, which many of you already do very well. But here's some tips that we're going to talk about today to help you be more successful in that world. And one of the things that I want to point out is that people are volunteering. Volunteer numbers nationally have come back and surpassed actually the numbers that we had COVID. So people are volunteering today, but they're volunteering in different ways. The younger generations that are coming into the volunteer force are enjoying more episodic short-term volunteering, where they can have one-time opportunities or something very specific instead of perhaps engaging and signing on for a full season or for a year. And, we many times think about volunteers who have been with us for what, 10 years or 20 years. And, I just celebrated a group of 50-year volunteers. That's not going to be our standard as we continue moving forward based on the data that we have and the way individuals are now volunteering. So I want you to kind of think about that. I also want to bring this with retention too, because sometimes we think about retention only, did we keep them all season? Or did we keep them for a year? Did we keep them for 2 years? But remember, retention really can be looked at, did they complete the assignment that they signed on for? So I really want you to think about that because that can help you really more appropriately evaluate, were you successful? Did you retain people for the role that they signed on for? Did they complete that assignment? And did they come back for something else? But retention really can be looked at in all those different ways. So I just want to throw that out there for you to think about as we get started this evening. The first thing that we really want to look at is identifying volunteer roles. There is nothing more frustrating for volunteers and staff alike when we have volunteers, but we called for them and we said we needed volunteers, but we didn't clearly plan for what they would be doing or how they would be doing it or who would be supervising them. When those kind of situations come up, that really has a negative effect on us moving forward. So we want to make sure that we're really thinking about what are those volunteer roles that people can serve in and who might be the best individuals for those roles, for those different roles, such as do we need someone that has great mobility skills? Can we have someone who doesn't really have a lot of mobility, but is really good with interacting with individuals? What skills do we want these individuals to have? Do we need them to be able to speak clearly? Do we need them to be able to write very clearly? Do we need them to speak perhaps a different language? Would that be helpful at our market? So those are all things to think about. And when we're thinking about those things, I would really encourage you to protect yourself and to help you with the successful recruitment of volunteers to develop position descriptions. And I don't want you to think that this needs to be real complicated and super official, but it does need to have key components in it because this outlines what they're going to do, who they're going to report to, or if they have a question or concern, who do I go to get that clarification, right? To make sure that I can be the best volunteer I can be in the role that I'm taking on that day. And what is the purpose of that position? Do this? Does it help us run the market effectively? Does it help us make sure that all the vendors are in the right spot? Does it help us make sure that people are parked in the right spaces? So think of what are the specifics of that role? And what is a benefit to the volunteer for doing it? Do they get to interact with a lot of different people? Do they get to assist with something that they might be passionate about? Do they get to help do X, Y, or Z? And sometimes a benefit is also part of the recognition. At one market that I volunteered at, I was then given a $2 coupon that I could use at any vendor. So that was a benefit. If I would have signed up to volunteer for the whole season, I could have earned a t-shirt for the farmers market. So those are all benefits too. Are there skills that they'll learn being part of this volunteer role? Might they learn evaluation skills, or they learn to use some data management skills, or learn how to use a specific computer program? So those are all things to think about as you're working with volunteers. Okay. What will the specific responsibilities be? And what qualifications or skills are needed? And when they really can know what they're going to be doing, it's easier for people to commit. Today's volunteer doesn't want to commit to just be there and do whatever you need. Many times they are more likely to volunteer when they know exactly what they're signing up for. Okay. I am happy to go work at the community kitchen if I know I can be the dishwasher. And I know that might sound silly to some of you, but I just want to be in the back doing my thing. I don't want to have to be forward facing out with all the people and serving and having, conversation. I just want to go hide in the back where most people don't want to be doing the dishes, and I'll do that for 4 hours straight. Okay? So people like to know sometimes what they can sign up for so that they're in their comfort zone or that they're doing something that they're really passionate about. Are there any special qualifications that are skills that are needed? Like if you're going to have them helping with your data management, you better make sure they know how to do that because I bet you it's all digital and it's on the computer. And having them being familiar with Excel or to work magic with spreadsheets is really helpful as you're looking to help them help you. Okay. And then what resources and support are available to them? Might that resource of support be an individual, or might it be a mentor or a more experienced volunteer at the market that can be their partner to get them feeling comfortable in their new role? So we want to think about those things as we move forward. And then there's the selection and screening of volunteers. And this may look different for each of you, or there may be some things that are standard, but it's always good to get an application and find out some of their interests on that form. Your application can really help you to understand what is their motivation, what is it that they're passionate about, what is it that they like to do, and is there anything that they can't do? They may not want to be around flowers because they have an allergy, or there might be something specific that they're like, I'll do anything but not this. Okay, those are some of the things you can get from that application, and if you have any conversations with that volunteer as you're doing things, so that you can match up those interests and skills. And they may be really good, like, hey, I'm looking to help with evaluation. Do you currently have anything going on with that? How can I help? That's my area of expertise. All right. And consider the time and talents that they're offering and if they are a fit for your market. We don't say yes to everyone that applies to be a volunteer because sometimes they're not the best fit for what we need people to do. We don't always have a role for someone else. And that's a time when we sometimes can refer them to another organization or another agency that may be a better fit for them. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later as well. And consider if you need background checks and which type of background checks you may need. And I want to be clear, background checks are not used to, you know, not accept people. Okay, that's not the reason we do them. We don't use them to screen out this big group of people. We use them to ensure the safety of the participants and those receiving our programs. And just because you have something on your criminal history doesn't mean you won't be a volunteer. It means that there may be restrictions on your volunteering, like not handling money or not driving on behalf of an organization. Okay, so those are some of the reasons that we do those background checks. And background checks, can be everything from a simple, iChat, which is our Michigan system with the Michigan State Police that nonprofits can use, to just a Michigan sex offender registry check that anyone can do because that's a public database, a national under all the way up to a national background check, which can run anywhere from 10 to 6 national background check done. So just know there's a huge variety of things there. As you're recruiting both new and returning adults or young people that are coming to volunteer, you want to make sure that you know what those specific needs are so that people can commit or decline so that you're not left in limbo because you need to know that you have things covered and that you have people that have the skills necessary to complete the tasks that you need to be done. So really think about that. And we've already talked about those things would be identified as you think through who do you need at the market? Okay, who do you need there to make things run smoothly and for your event or your program to be successful. And it vary from week to week depending on what else is happening. If it's Kids Day versus, a senior special, you're going to need different volunteers to make that event a success. So think about that. For recruitment strategies, giving the specific what you're going to be doing that you've decided can really help you with recruitment. There are two types of recruitment. There's targeted and non-targeted. Non-targeted recruitment is really good when you just need individuals that have very general skills. And then there's targeted recruitment. So if you want to make sure that you have someone that has you want like an extension master gardener type individual, that would be a targeted recruitment. If you wanted someone that had that expertise, things that you want to think about as you're recruiting volunteers. Orientation and training. I always say don't overlook orientation and training. Orientation and training should not be intimidating to you. It should be an opportunity to let volunteers know I'm thankful that you're here, and this is how you're going to help us accomplish our mission or accomplish our purpose for this event or program. And that orientation and training can be 5 minutes when everybody shows up and you have them in a group and you give general directions, to a more detailed, in-depth training where you have specific expertise that is required. When I'm recruiting volunteers to operate one of our systems for a shooting sports tournament, I train them in the system that we're going to be using, and that's about 3 hours of training. And then we have a 1 hour orientation at the event where they're actually looking at the targets and things and have hands-on time with that system. And I pair them for data entry with, we always enter data in, two people. I always pair them with someone who's experienced and someone who's new. That way we have that mentoring going on and we have someone that they can ask that question to. And we have it very clear who is the ringmaster as they're doing all of that data entry in case there's a question or we need clarity on anything. So that's important to think about. So when volunteers know that their role is relevant to the mission and the purpose and to the success of your event, they're more likely to stay engaged and to come back and to share with others. And those are all things that we want as we're recruiting and looking at volunteers. So let those volunteers know how they matter, why they matter, and how they're helping you achieve your goals. When you're communicating with volunteers, remember, we are using volunteers from 4 and even 5 generations now as we're putting on programs and events in a variety of different settings with different organizations. We really do have a great opportunity because we have so many different generations all coming together to volunteer at the same time. But with that comes challenges. Challenges with communication. It may be that text messages work great for some. Some might still need an email. Others may be regularly checking your social media presence. Others, may want a handwritten schedule that they can print out or a schedule that can be printed out by someone else that they can just pick up so they can post it and check it off as they're going along. Okay, so think about that and think about timely and clear updates. And, I always tell people don't assume that people know what to wear when they're coming to volunteer either. I always say include that in your communications as people volunteer. If they're going to be working in an environment where they have to meet certain regulations of the health department, such as when they're working in a food stand type thing, they need to know that they need to have shoulders covered, that, they need to have a hat, they need to have their hair pulled back. Like, give them all of those parameters when you confirm, we're so excited you signed up for X, Y, or Z. Here are some things to remember about coming. And then make sure you're sending that out more than one way so that you're hitting all the different people that have signed up for that event. Okay. And allow for some two-way interaction. That two-way interaction allows volunteers to ask questions or get the clarity that they need to be successful and to be where you need them to be. This also helps prevent burnout because they know that they can then communicate back with you to offer some input, some suggestions, or get that clarity. But sometimes when we have systems that we use, send messages, it says, you can't reply to this, or it just goes to a box that no one monitors. So we want to make sure that you're allowing for that two-way interaction so that you can benefit what the volunteer may be sharing with you, as well as they can benefit from interacting with you. So those are important. When we talk about recognition, it doesn't need to be fancy. It may be formal or informal. Maybe we suggest ongoing recognition because people sometimes need that little bit of recognition so that they come back. Okay, they need to know they did a good job because if they're not sure, they're questioning how their shift went or how their day went. If you don't say anything to them positive, or you don't offer some constructive, feedback to help them improve for the next time, they might just not come back. So we want to make sure that we're doing that. And remember, it can come in so many different forms. I know I've seen, as I've traveled around to different events, a lot of events, if it's really hot, or it's in the summer, a lot of them have given reusable water bags. Another one, I have a friend in another state who makes reusable market bags, and anyone that volunteers can take one of the reusable market bags as their thank you gift. That's something that she donates to the market. Others might have an official t-shirt or a name badge even is a form of recognition. It acknowledges who they are and how they're part of your program or event. And like I said, sometimes it's as simple as a coupon that can be used at different vendors, if that's an option. And even, it can be a percentage or it can be a dollar amount. That $2 coupon encouraged me to, go to a booth I maybe wouldn't have gone to because I'd already done my shopping before my shift, but then I had this coupon, so I looked more at the market. And that $2 coupon turned into like a $50 purchase. So those are important things for you to think about. And those can really help people feel valued. And don't ever underestimate the power of a simple thank you note. Thank you notes that are handwritten or thank you notes that go on social media, just as you communicated about the program event prior to in different methods, make sure your recognition is hitting different methods as well. Some individuals really love that personal thank you note. That's one of the questions I ask when I'm getting to know volunteers is how do you like to be recognized? Because that really makes a difference. And you want to make sure that you're kind of hitting that sweet spot as you're talking about the language of appreciation with them. And what about evaluation? We are so busy doing that sometimes it's hard to think about evaluation until we wish we would have done it, right? And there are different types of evaluation. So make sure that you are soliciting and acting on feedback. And one great way to do that is to say, because you made this suggestion, we changed this, or we've added this. And remember, there are different types of evaluation. Process evaluation is really about evaluating the process that someone went through to perhaps become a volunteer, or the way they became a vendor, or the way that they had to go through the way that you have something set up. An outcome evaluation is very different in that it's what impact did we have because we did X? Because we did X, did Y occur? That's an outcome evaluation. And then there's the economic impact. And we know that farmers market have a significant economic impact on all of our communities and the other events that you do as well. So what impact did we have? What was the economic return, right? And part of that can be you can use that hourly rate for volunteer time that is updated every year by the independent sector. And then there's also that personal effectiveness and improvement of volunteers. What did volunteers tell you could have been better about their volunteer experience? What would have helped them to be more successful? And as you're looking at volunteers and their performance and you're hearing things from those that are supervising those volunteers or you're noticing things with the volunteers, it's a perfect time to be doing that even visual evaluation of, oh, we should have discussed, maybe we need to put in that you want to wear, shoes that you're really comfortable walking in because I noticed some of them, had blisters. We gave out a lot of Band-Aids today. Or, I noticed it would have been really helpful if they had additional pens and paper at their station. They were always out. So those are some things for you to really think about. And addressing volunteer issues. I can't stress enough, don't let issues just fester. Issues will not go away, they'll only get bigger and cause you additional challenges. So the first thing you want to know when you have a volunteer issue is define really what the issue is. Is it about a competency with the skills that they have? Is it about the chemistry with the other individuals that they're working with or the best fit even with the project? And are they challenges with policy or procedure? And was that policy and procedure clearly communicated? And did they choose to ignore it? Or was that never communicated to them? Because those are very different issues that need to be handled different ways. And remember to separate the person from the problem. We just want to focus on what is the real issue, okay? And then be direct, but always be kind. Follow up and then evaluate how are things going now, because those are important steps so that the problem doesn't continue to grow. There are some options when you have challenging volunteers or challenging situations. After you've determined, is this a training issue because was it competency based? Was it that they didn't know the policies and procedures? Then you can apply what's on this slide. You can reassign them. Are they not the best fit with the team that you put them with, but would they be great with another team? That's when you might reassign them. or reassign them to a different task. Okay. Do they need retraining? Did you not train them, or were they not trained to do a specific task and did they just not understand it fully? Or did they think they had flexibility in how that task was accomplished? Because sometimes tasks have very specific ways in which they need to be done to follow policies and procedures and health guidelines, but other times there's greater flexibility. So, is retraining possibly needed, or putting them with a mentor something that you need to do? Or does this volunteer just starting to burn out and do we need to recharge them? And can we recharge them with a new opportunity, or maybe putting them in charge of two or three new volunteers so that they feel like they have some growth in their volunteer position? As I mentioned earlier, there's times when we're not the best fit for everyone. So that's when we refer them to another organization. It is not giving someone a problem individual. It is giving someone to another organization where their passions, their potential can be reached, and where they can be happy volunteering and be of service to their community. Because isn't that why everyone typically steps forward? They want to make a difference. And sometimes it's time to help someone retire gracefully. And that's when they can no longer perhaps fulfill the duties and you don't have something else that you can reassign them to. It may be that you need to help a volunteer evaluate that it is time to retire. And some people feel they can't volunteer because who else will do it? No one else can do this. So when we bring in other volunteers that are helping and getting engaged, we can help them see that the program will continue even if they step aside, because that's one of the largest fears as we talk to volunteers who have been with programs for a long time or say, I would retire, but it's typically no one else can do it, or I think the program will die. So when we can help them calm those fears and show them that those aren't the true realities, it can really make a big difference. So these are just some that was a really quick overview of volunteer management to give you some pointers to help you be successful. I know you all are doing really great work in so many of the environments that you're in, and I encourage you to keep doing that, and keep engaging volunteers. And when I noticed that someone had a question in there about volunteers or interns, it really can be how they're working with you as an organization and how did you promote it. And interns as well should have clear role descriptions, right? And many of the same principles that I talked about here do apply to interns. So that's something, for you to think of. So I hope that helps, Mary. I see here that she talked about schools usually have paid volunteers or community service workers, maybe unpaid. Yep. So, think about that, regardless of if they're coming to you for community service, as a young person or as, someone that's a little, further in their life cycle. Treat them with respect. Treat them and use all the things that I've just talked about here, those role descriptions, those mentors. Ask them for their feedback. Sometimes the feedback that I received from volunteers that were working on a project with us helped us so much in getting that event or program to the next level, because they could see what we didn't, because they were looking at it from a very different perspective. So use those volunteers' perspectives to help you thrive, not just survive in what you're doing, but really take it up to the next level. So any other questions?
Jennifer, that was a wonderful overview, and reminded me of many of the things that we should be thinking about when we utilize volunteers, particularly at the farmers market, the Capitol. So really appreciated that. Does anyone does anyone want to come off mute and ask Jennifer a question that way? Okay.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jennifer. If you wouldn't mind sticking around for just a few more minutes until folks go out to breakout rooms in case somebody has a comment or question in the chat. But at this point, we are going to prepare to engage. So recommend if you are able to prepare to come on video. We are gonna go out into some small breakout rooms, and so it would be nice to see faces and know that people are there and not just black boxes on the screen today or purple boxes, whatever is coming up for you. So we are going to go out into a couple of small breakouts, and I won't say I will credit Jenny for preparing some discussion prompts, which I will share. I won't take any of Jenny's thunder here. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So these are our discussion prompts for tonight. We want you to go out into these breakout rooms and talk about an event that you would like to host at your farmers market. It might be one that you've hosted in the past or something brand new that you have an idea for. We want you to explore how this event could enhance your market's atmosphere. What are you hoping people see and hear and feel and do while they're at the event? Maybe even taste while they're at the event. And then we want you to identify with your group, the support of your group, a few first steps that you could take in planning for this event. So, what event would you like to host at your market? How could this event enhance your market's atmosphere? And what are a few first steps you could take in planning this event? I will put these prompts in the chat box so that you don't lose them when you go out to the breakout rooms. And this is also where I would ask our speakers, Jennifer, Clara, and Isabella, if you could indicate to me in the chat, either a private chat or the general chat, if you would like to go out to a breakout or if you would like to stay back in the main room. I'm going to be creating some small breakouts and I'm going to send you out. Um, Let me see if this will work. Perfect. I'm going to send you out for 20 minutes. So you're going to have lots of time to talk. You're going to have about 3 people per group. So if you could each identify an event. And then when we come back together, I'd love to hear 2 or 3 examples of events that you're thinking of, how you would envision they would enhance your market's atmosphere, and a few steps you've identified to get started on planning this event. So let me just check in with our speakers. Jennifer's going to stay in the main room. Isabella, if you're and Clara, if you could let me know if you want to go out to a breakout or stay. Isabella's going to stay. Clara, how
I
about
sent
you?
you a private chat, but I'm also staying.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm going to just redistribute. Just a second here. 1, 2. Okay, these are going to be small groups. Clara, Isabella, and Jennifer, it's going to ask you to go out, but you can just decline that. So again, I'm going to give you 20 minutes and I'm going to put these prompts, I'm going to give you 15. And I'm going to put these prompts in the chat. That's about 5 minutes per person. I'm going to call you back at 7:20 and I want to hear from 3 different people. So here we go. Oh no. Okay. I didn't know Maddie had to leave. Okay. I have everybody who's staying in 2 breakout rooms. Great. We set a timer so I don't get distracted and forget. And I'm gonna pause the recording. Okay, welcome back, everyone. We had 2 breakout rooms, so I would love to hear at least an example from each. So again, our prompts were an event that you'd like to host at your market, how that event can enhance your market's atmosphere, and a few first steps you could take in planning that event. So in room number one, we had Laura, Trey, and Val. Would any of you like to share what you have in mind?
Val, would you like to share for us?
Laura, you're so silly. Okay, so so we were talking about kids participation at the markets and at our markets. And I think all of us are kind of planning on doing some kind of like kids event at our market. Trey and I both kind of talked about hosting a young entrepreneur, a kidpreneur event day where they can come and sell at the market. And all of us really agreed, like the atmosphere with children and with kids and youth, it really kind of boosts the environment. It makes the market feel like it's, a living thing, and it makes it feel like the market is growing, which is really a good thing. Like it's a positive thing. It's not a bad thing that kids are running around and having fun. Like it should be that way, and it helps produce community. Um, and like for me, I know a few first steps that I need to take are I'm going to be working with a community partner of our market with a restaurant that's going to be helping me put it on because they hosted one last year and we just want to make it bigger. So I've already set my first meeting with her. And I've already set the date. We've already got it on the calendar. It's ready to go. So now I just need to like figure out, am I gonna have kids apply through MarketWorks, or are we just gonna do like a Google application? And how do we get the word out there, and where do we put the application? So those are all things that she and I are gonna talk about.
Awesome. Thank you for that example, Val.
Yeah.
Um, Marshall, from the beginning of their market, has done a kids entrepreneur day, and it's one of my favorite days at their market. And also, it has created, a next generation of market vendors, and they have
Absolutely.
at least one cottage food vendor who's still with their market that started as a middle schooler. So very cool to be creating that next generation of market vendors and also to be, exciting the next generation of market shoppers with that kind of programming too. Very cool. Okay, the next breakout room was Andrew, Barb, and Mary. Who wants to share from that group?
I can share.
Thanks, Andrew.
Um, so we have two markets, and right now we're trying to find ways to enhance our second market, which takes place on Saturdays. Which recently we're actually looking at moving that to an evening market as opposed to a morning market. Um, so with it, I kind of want to implement a cornhole tournament. I think it would be a really fun way to make the market a bit more of a community space and give another incentive for people to just come down and enjoy our downtown area, since that one takes place at our downtown as opposed to our other pavilion. So I think it would be a great way to bring people downtown, just enjoy the area, enjoy the market. And the first steps on how to move forward on planning this is we have a axe throwing place in town that also does cornhole. So I'm planning to reach out to them and see if they would be willing to come in and help run the actual tournament so I don't have to try to do that on top of a regular market day. So I'm super excited and hoping it'll work out this year.
Smart. A community partner who's already got the game down and can come in and do that for you. That'd be really cool. Andrew, are you envisioning just a one-time tournament one Saturday, or is this like a monthly, all season long tournament, bracketed
I
tournament?
was
What are you thinking?
thinking kind of like monthly. Yeah. I
Monthly.
think
Okay.
once a month would be ideal.
Gotcha. Very cool. I know too that in Clara's presentation, she mentioned that events can help keep people at the market for longer. And we do know too that, from research that the longer someone stays in a retail environment, the more they will buy. And I could see where with like a cornhole tournament, you need to maybe buy some food to snack on while, you're waiting for your team to come up afterwards. You might buy a celebratory treat. So there's lots of opportunities to kind of engage with the vendors throughout the tournament too. So that's great. All right. We have more time. Does anybody else want to share?
I think one of the main takeaways that I got from our group breakout is in those first steps when you're talking about creating these events, how important it is to reach out to your resources. We all were talking about, our wanting to incorporate kids activities, kidspreneur days, things along that line. And I think our first step for us was really seeing what that looked like, what community partners we could touch base with, what experts and other type of resources we could really, tap into. Just goes to remind us that when building a market, we're certainly not doing it alone. And developing those partnerships and relationships with our community can really make this much easier and much more of a, community-driven effort.
Yeah, that's a great reminder, Trey. Thanks so much. I know too that our 4-H programs through MSU Extension also have a lot of youth entrepreneurial type programming, and so they could also be great partners for youth entrepreneur and youth vendor days at the market. So yeah, absolutely. Reach out to those community partners. They're probably looking for places to do programming, and so you have a place, and so it's a great exchange there, a real value add for both. Okay, well, we are coming to the end of our regular scheduled programming. So thank you for sticking with us today. And again, congratulations. This is the last topic-based webinar for the program. So I do want to just touch briefly on what happens from here. So all of the webinar quizzes are, yeah, absolutely. Congrats, everyone. All the webinar quizzes are now available in Canvas. So you have until the deadline for those is technically, well, this Wednesday, the 11th. So if there's any quizzes you haven't done so far, please go back and do those. And the quiz for tonight is up there. And then all of your assignments are due on Sunday. Your special assignment number 4, which is complete your presentation, because our presentation day is next Monday, a week from today. And that's when you will also be providing peer feedback to peer market managers on their presentations. And then by the following day, we would ask you to complete the full program evaluation. So you're getting really close to the end. And with the remaining time today, I want to introduce you to my toddler, Rocky. And you want to come wave? Oh, sounds like he's a dinosaur tonight. And I want to open it up. Yes, exactly. I want to open it up for any technical assistance, questions, clarifications around the presentations. Jenny wanted to make sure we had space for that tonight.
So how much time are we allowed?
Absolutely. So hold on. Yeah. Oh, bring your dinosaur. Show him your dinosaur.
And who's this one?
Oh, he's whatting?
See this button? He makes more.
Okay, that dinosaur's roaring. So I believe your presentation is supposed to be 8 to 10 minutes. Just wanted to confirm that. So you will have 8 to 10 minutes for your presentation and then 5 minutes for Q&A after. So your total kind of time allotment is 15 minutes, but we ask you to keep your presentation to 8 to 10.
Is it, generically just a PowerPoint, or, I mean, what is it? What's the format, I guess?
The format can really be anything that you're comfortable with. I would also definitely encourage you to consider who's the audience that you're pretending to give this presentation to and think about what format would be best for them. So if you're comfortable with a PowerPoint and you're giving a presentation to a group of potential sponsors, or you're having a pre-season meeting of vendors and you want to do a PowerPoint about what to expect from the season, I think that all makes sense. If you are giving a presentation to a city council or, township board, then they might not have AV available. And so it might just be an oral presentation, or you might prepare a one-pager about your market, and have that as a reference. But it's really up to you. The format's really up to you. What are you most comfortable with, and what do you think would be best suited for this audience?
And we're doing it like here, like a Zoom, or
Yes.
how it's okay. That's the
Yep.
part.
Yeah, my question was basically how does the night work? Because I mean, with 15 minutes and there's like 20 some of us, how is that gonna work?
Yeah, that math doesn't really math, does it?
Yeah, yeah.
So we will be breaking up into smaller breakout rooms. So you won't, thank you, honey. You won't present to the full 30 people that are in the full program. You'll present to a smaller group of maybe 6 to 8. So then in the time allotment, if they're in groups of 6, then that's an hour and a half. So you'll present to small groups, and you'll have a MIFMA staff person in each room, and we'll be the ones that support timekeeping and evaluations and making sure that the everything goes smoothly. But you'll be presenting to a smaller subset of the participants.
And then for the technology related to that, should we talk to you like sometime this week? Because
Yeah, so
it's been 1,000 years since I did a Zoom presentation.
yeah, if you need any support, definitely reach out sooner rather than later. Jenny is in DC at the National Sustainable Agriculture Coalition meeting today and tomorrow and Wednesday. She'll be doing hill visits with our members of Congress on Wednesday. So she's really not accessible by email over the next 3 days, but she'll be back emails Thursday, Friday, and then Monday. And so if you do need some kind of support, please reach out. Otherwise, if you want to do a PowerPoint, you prepare it. You could submit whatever you have drafted by Sunday evening through your assignment. If you want somebody to look at it, or if you've got it all done by Sunday and you want to submit the PowerPoint to show that you're ready for the presentation, that would be great. And then just bring it with you. So by bring it with you, I mean have it on your computer. And when it becomes your turn to present, we'll make sure that you have the ability to share your screen. And you'll pull up the PowerPoint on your computer and share your screen so we can see it, and we can walk you through that in person that day too. But yeah, just make sure it's available on your computer and open and Monday evening, and that's when we'll help you get it visible to everybody else.
So where do we send our presentation to?
So in Canvas, under the Assignments tab, assignment number 4 is your it's called Complete Your Presentation. It looks like it doesn't, hold on. It looks like it doesn't open until, yeah, it doesn't open until after tonight. I'm not seeing it in here. So Jenny must be gonna add it. No, here it is right here. It's due. Let me see what this is. It's published, so it should be there now. And what I'm seeing is view as student. Let me see what you see. Okay. So on assignment number 4, gives you all the outline, and I can go to start assignment, and it lets me do a file upload. So if I have a PowerPoint, I can just upload that right there and show that I'm ready. There's a text entry tab if I want to just write out. So if I'm doing an oral presentation, if I'm just going to talk for my presentation, I could write out either like an outline of what you're going to say, or if you're doing a full script, you could put that in the text entry. A website URL if you're doing Google Slides, or you've got your outline in a Google Doc or something like that, you could just put a link to it here. Make sure that the sharing features are so that somebody can open the link. But you could put in a link to something in a Google Drive or some other kind of file share system. And then media would let you record or upload like a video. So if you've practiced and you have a video of you practicing, you could put that in. So any of those types of formats will work if you want file upload, text entry, website URL, or media.
So I know that we're being pretty flexible in the format, but in regards to the presentation itself, are we pretty adamantly against pre-recording the presentation with the open Q&A? Has to be live, correct?
it's designed to be live, yes.
Mhm.
Because in most instances your presentation would be live. Uh,
Right.
I think if you had a good argument or a good scenario in which you would not be delivering a live presentation and you could express that, I'm open to it. But
I won't be difficult. I'll just
okay,
do it live, but I just was gonna see. So, okay,
yeah.
thank you.
I would say too that we recognize that um, we've been doing this since 2011, so 17 years, and there does come a certain amount of anxiety with giving a presentation, and for some that anxiety level is much higher than for others. Just know that again, you'll be in a smaller group, so we're talking like 6 to 8 folks. They are all your peers, and they will all also be giving a presentation. So it's a small supportive group of market managers and who are all going to do the same thing that you're doing that night. And so if that helps you at all to relieve any anxiety, otherwise, picturing folks in their underwear, I don't recommend, but something that
So,
people jokingly say could help, or a fidget spinner.
mutual suffering. Excellent.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. What other questions or clarifications could be helpful?
I just have a technical question about the first quiz. I just don't know if I'm the only person that's seeing it, but I just wasn't able to access it.
The first quiz.
Yeah,
The
I can hang on the line too if that, after, if that's easier.
supporting diverse, equitable, and inclusive farmers markets.
Yeah,
Let me see.
it's the only one I wasn't able to access.
Okay,
Just wasn't sure if anybody.
we do have 24 respondents.
Okay,
So
I'll just hang out on the line and chat with you about it after then.
yeah, that's fine.
And there was something, and maybe they're not graded or whatever, the discussions, I think it is. Um, like we're our pie or whatever. Anyway, so those all have zeros. Is that because it's not really officially due until whenever?
Yeah, so the discussions are not graded. They
Oh,
are
that's
kind of pass fail. Like there's something that we ask you to do, but we're not grading them per se.
okay.
Um, let me just
So
see.
zero is good.
Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna see. I'm trying to get back to this. What does Jenny say about? Yeah, and I think too that okay. You're encouraged to respond to others' comments. So we also discussions boards will open 1 week before the due date. So also trying to leave those open and not close them to assign points so that the conversation can keep going if you want to respond to other folks or if additional questions or thoughts come up. I think if we close them to grade them or assign points, then folks can't continue to participate in them. So another reason to
That's
leave
fair.
them open.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions about the presentations or your prep or any of the assignments? I got a thumbs up from Val. I'm seeing some head shake. All right. Great. Well, best of luck with your final assignments and preparations. And I will be in one of those groups next Monday, so I look forward to seeing you all there. And I hope that you have a good night.
Thank you.